Imagine waking up and realizing the entire podcast world has flipped overnight because Joe Rogan just snatched back the #1 spot on Apple's 2025 charts, dethroning The Daily in a comeback nobody saw coming. And the ripple effect? Massive. Today we're breaking down how Rogan reclaimed the throne, why his Elon Musk episode exploded globally, and what it means for the entire podcast industry heading into 2026. From SiriusXM domination to viral Kelsey Swift moments to Apple's surprising newcomer list, there's a lot of power shifting behind the scenes. But Rogan topping Apple isn't just another ranking update. It marks a major shift in listener behavior and how platforms compete for attention. And honestly, the numbers behind it are wild. So let's unpack exactly what happened, why it matters, and how Rogan's return to the top is changing the landscape once again. So let's start at the top. Apple released its 2025 analytics on Tuesday, and the data shows Rogan didn't just climb the rankings, he bulldozed through them. After years as Spotify's reigning king, he's now taken over Apple as well, knocking The Daily into second place. And what pushed him forward wasn't just loyal listeners. It was a surge of global plays, boosted heavily by the now infamous Elon Musk episode. That single conversation reached 4th place among all episodes this year, and that's huge considering Apple charts reflect worldwide activity, not just US numbers. Meanwhile, the Mel Robbins podcast surged into 3rd, making her one of the year's most influential voices across platforms. Half the top 10 shows belong to SiriusXM, showing just how aggressively they've spread across audio spaces. But Rogan reclaiming Apple's crown after losing exclusivity with Spotify last year shows something important. His audience follows him no matter where he goes. And it gets even more interesting when you look at listener loyalty. Rogan's Spotify exclusivity ended in February 2024, yet he reportedly signed a massive $250 million deal to continue working with them, just not exclusively. That meant his content was suddenly everywhere again. Apple, Amazon, YouTube, RSS platforms. And once that happened, the audience numbers exploded in a way that feels almost like a test case for the future of podcast distribution. Instead of locking creators inside one platform, giving them freedom may actually boost their total reach. And listeners clearly responded because his conversations, especially the ones with big-name guests like Musk, shot up Apple's charts as if he'd never left. The interesting twist? Rogan didn't even change his format. No dramatic reinventions. No huge marketing campaigns. Just the same long-form conversations that have always powered his brand. But Apple's rankings didn't just highlight Rogan's comeback. They also revealed how much true crime dominance continues in audio. Crime Junkie, Dateline NBC, Murder in the Moonlight, and Deadly Mirage all placed in top categories. And episodes like Murdered, The Feeney Family, took over global listening charts. True crime fans remain some of the most dedicated listeners in the world. And while Rogan dominates headline-wise, true crime dominates consistency. Meanwhile, shows like Smart Less, Call Her Daddy, and This American Life continue to hold strong positions year after year. And Huberman Labs' presence in the top 10 signals something else rising fast: science-based self-improvement. Apple's data this year paints a very clear picture. People crave long conversations, real investigations, big personalities, and self-development. And those 4 worlds now make up the backbone of the podcast industry. But the episode rankings, that's where things get wild. The single most listened episode of the year was from the Telepathy Tapes, with an episode exploring telepathic communication inside a silenced community. A niche show outranking Rogan, Crime Junkie, and even the Kelsey brothers. Nobody predicted that. Then you've got the New Heights Taylor Swift episode, placing in the top 3 globally. That one didn't just dominate audio, it trended across TikTok, X, Instagram Reels, pretty much everywhere. And Rogan's Musk episode slid in at 4th, beating out even The Daily's Trump episode. It's a lineup that feels like a snapshot of 2025 culture. Part conspiracy, part celebrity, part true crime, part politics, and all of them together show how unpredictable listener behavior is becoming. Now let's talk about newcomers, because Apple's top new shows list might be the most important insight into what's coming next. Amy Poehler's Good Hang took the top spot, proving that celebrity-driven conversational shows still have massive pull when executed well. Kylie Kelce's new show landed at number 2, riding the wave of the Kelsey Swift cultural moment. And then, you've got several new investigative series, Deadly Mirage, Blink, Murder in the Moonlight, dominating the rest of the list. What this tells us is simple. The audiences of 2025 crave familiar voices and immersive storytelling. Apple's rankings show an industry diversifying instead of narrowing, with more genres rising simultaneously than ever before. And here's where the shift becomes more obvious. The most shared shows. Sharing shows is different from listening. It means people are so moved, shocked, inspired, or entertained that they actively forward episodes to friends. And topping that list was the Telepathy Tapes again, showing just how viral that series became. Mel Robbins dominated sharing numbers as well, especially her episode on women's health and body reset strategies. Sold a Story, The Bible in a Year, Scamanda, and The Ezra Klein Show round out a list that mixes self-help, spirituality, investigative journalism, and politics. Sharing patterns reveal emotional connection, not just numbers. And that's why these charts matter. They show what content people feel compelled to talk about, not just consume quietly. But the follow rankings reveal a different trend entirely. The most followed show of the year wasn't Rogan. It was the Mel Robbins podcast. That means more people hit follow on her show than any other podcast in 2025. Rogan came in second, followed by newcomers like Good Hang and Not Gonna Lie. The follow metric shows long-term interest, not viral spikes. It means listeners want updates, notifications, and continuous content. And this shift might mark Robbins as the rising long-term star of the audio world, while Rogan maintains the massive evergreen listener base he's always had. The two different types of power, virality versus loyalty, play out clearly in Apple's data. But there's another layer worth talking about, the cultural fallout. With Rogan returning to the #1 spot, his critics wasted no time reigniting debates around his platform, his unfiltered style, and his guest choices, especially Musk, whose appearance sparked controversies across media outlets. Meanwhile, fans argue that Rogan's strength is exactly that: unrestricted conversations. Love him or hate him, the numbers prove he moves culture in a way few podcasters ever have. And his continued presence across both Spotify and Apple suggests listeners want flexibility. They want creators everywhere, not locked behind walls. As the industry shifts again, this may be the model everyone follows next. So as we look ahead to 2026, the message is clear. Podcasts aren't slowing down. They're becoming one of the strongest storytelling spaces in digital media. Rogan sits at the top once more. The Daily remains a powerhouse. Mel Robbins is rising like crazy. And newcomers are proving there's plenty of room for fresh voices. With true crime dominating, celebrity podcasts trending, and experimental shows like the Telepathy Tapes breaking barriers, audio is more diverse than ever. And this year's Apple charts show exactly how fast the landscape can shift when audiences decide to push someone back to the top. One thing's certain, if 2025 looked like this, 2026 is about to get even louder. Stay tuned, because this space isn't done evolving.